Thank you for joining us for the next episode of Boxer Shorts. If you've not been on one of these before, we deliberately set these up to be bite-sized webinars, usually picking on one interesting topic or one interesting manufacturer or something that we feel is very timely. We aim to be in and out of these start to finish within half an hour. Generally a little bit shorter than that. We really are trying to keep it focused. As I say, I'll answer any questions. I will answer any questions as we go along, or there will be time at the end. We do allow a little bit there, and you're welcome to stay and chat as long as you like. So again, if you don't know me, I'm Mark Risby. I'm the CTO at Boxer. Today we're talking with Duncan Beattie from GB Labs, who've been a partner of ours for quite some time now. I'll leave him to introduce himself and the company in more details. I like these events because they're times where I don't have to say that much, but I'll join in as we go along if there's anything that we want to point out. But really, the focus is on GB Labs, and they're a company we've worked with, as I say, for quite a while. And on the disk storage and the workflow side, they're a very interesting company. For a start, they're a British company, which is quite nice to say that. We don't have many British technology suppliers ourselves, so it's great to have some homegrown talent. And one of the nice things about them is there's a million different storage vendors out there, and we carry a few. We try and make sure that our partners work in slightly different areas, but one of the things we've always loved about GB is that their products were designed squarely for the video market. They're not a generic IT provider that has a product that just sort of fits. They're somebody who understands video. They understand workflows. They understand how many streams of this and that you've got. And if you look at their website and you look at their data sheets, you'll see that's how they talk about stuff. It's not just pure data rates. They'll talk about how many streams of ProRes 422, and they'll talk about how workflows work that's specific to our industry. And that's what we like. And why we're here today specifically, well, the last year has been a bit of a ride, isn't it? None of us thought we'd be doing the things that we have been doing. It's a complete change, and workflow wise, and in production, that means that we're trying to find new ways of doing things. Remote working is something that I think a lot of people never thought we would see in editing. People would go to the office. You need the high-res storage. You need access to the media and the people. But we found lots of people trying to, come up with new ways of working, and people have genuinely been incredibly creative. A lot of customers have found new ways of doing things, and during that time, GB Labs has come up with a new way of working themselves. They found some technology and some integrations that they'd already done, and they've augmented those with some new products and some new software to come up with something very interesting and very much timely now. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to hand over to Duncan to explain properly, and I shall be back at the end. So thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you, Mark, and good morning. Good morning to everybody. I hope everyone is well. So great introduction. Thank you to that, Mark. And yeah, I wanted to go through just a couple of things, a little bit about us, about what we do, and also explain how we are approaching this kind of new world that we're living in terms of the way that we're working a little bit in the office, a little bit at home. So let me just start up the presentation. And hopefully you can see, everyone can see that. So talking about who GB Labs are, so we are a company that's been around for quite some time. We've been around for since 2000 originally when we started, but when we really came into the market, we started in 2009 in terms of our shared storage. That's when we first went to IBC with our space platform of products and shared storage for media. What we're really trying to do is take this 20 years experience and bring it to the industry. And as Mark said, that we understand it. The core founders of the company, we also work in a partner environment. We've always been involved in video. We understand video. We do, as Mark said, produce these stream counts. Which is an interesting story of how we did that. At the beginning, when we started producing our storage, a lot of customers or potential customers are going, well, it can't be that fast, surely. because it's not a SAN. And we're like, well, actually it is. So we produced a stream count, go, there we go, that's what it says it does on the tin. So it's really important for customers to understand what their product can actually do for them. So they're very much designed with media in mind. And as I said, we've been doing this since 2009. So 2007, we started with space. And ideally, right from the beginning, it was designed to replace SAN. Its job was to replace the SAN in an environment. So you wouldn't need all the complexities that a SAN brought with it. You could actually get this from a NAS-based platform in terms of the computers connecting. So very simple. And a really good suite of software tools that have grown and grown and grown over the years. Again, very much with the managers and the users in mind about what the storage can do for them, which we find incredibly important. So the challenge, 2020 to 2021 has been interesting for everybody. It's been an incredible time around the globe, and a lot of companies have had to adapt. Some businesses have not really been hit by what's happened. I think production really has been hit by the pandemic for very obvious reasons. People in close proximity in production, making products, people having to be in the office and working together in editing suites and things like that. So it has really been hit hard. And there has been a glut in production, which is why it's going to be ramping up as we come back to normality. So what have we learned from 2020? Well, we've certainly learned that working from home is a reality for a lot of people. And for most people, it's just used to not commuting really, or perhaps being on your own a bit more. Perhaps meeting new colleagues that you've never met in the flesh. So it's only Zoom colleagues, But for our industry, I think it's absolutely key. How are you supposed to edit 4K at home? You need performance, you need those drives. After all, that's why we have what we do. So looking to the future, we've certainly changed some of the aspects of what we're putting forward. We've developed our software, we've had some great tools, we've increased our development team, and you'll see what are the fruits of our labor, particularly later on as we discuss what we see in the future. And we've understood that really cloud and cloud services, hybrid workflow and flexibility are absolutely key. And certainly I think this is something that Mark and I will be discussing in a minute, is that all of the customers that we've spoken to, I don't think any of them have said that we're all going to be back in the office. And I think it's very much going to be, ourselves included as a business, it's very much going to be a balance of having people together and having people work remotely. I think that working from home has given a better quality of life to a lot of people as well. I'm lucky enough not have to cram onto a train every morning and go to central London, but I can imagine those that have not had to do that have been enjoying it. So it is going to be a real mixture of the two, and that has to reflect in our business and what we do within media. So a little bit about what we've been doing. So, and this is really more of a conversational presentation, sort of a discussion point really to bring up, talking about what we're doing. So, years ago, before shared storage, we had this kind of environment where you'd have drives, you'd have backups, you'd have different disks, different machines, people carrying files around, lots of data duplication, poor security, not really scalable, and all pretty terrible really. So what do we do as an industry? We moved to central storage, and whether that was NAS or a SAN, it gave collaborative working, and it increased performance, it increased flexibility, it increased productivity, and also reduced the risk of duplication of data. Quite key when you've got multiple video files flying around, that uses up a lot of storage. So there's a lot of very good reasons that people went to central storage. And then of course, the pandemic hit. So what did we end up with? Well, we ended up with pretty similar to where we were in the beginning. So you have got your central office where you may have already got that investment in that storage structure, but you've also got people working at home, you've got different cloud services, you've got people walking around with USB drives, going to the office, grabbing some data, going home maybe, and having a real issue trying to make that work for them. So what have we done? Well, we've also looked at the cloud. And of course, the cloud is not just one thing. The cloud is multiple things. It's islands of data in different continents, And that all sounds great, but then it depends where your data is to where you're accessing it. You know, how are you going to get that performance? How are you going to bring that towards you? So we have to think about that as well. So what have we done? We've created Unify Hub. So Unify Hub is a suite of tools. It's available either as an appliance to plug directly into our storage or someone else's storage, or it's available as a software upgrade on our storage systems. But what does it really do? Well, we spoke to a lot of people about this. We've already had cloud integration in our systems for probably 7 years now. And that's always been with AWS, and we've introduced Backblaze and Dropbox and things like that. So we've always had that cloud integration, but it's very much been about data safety rather than workflow. So we've created Unify Hub. Unify Hub is a secure set of tools, and it composes of quite a few different components, really. The first of which is cloud storage. So what we are able to do is we are able to bring existing cloud storage into Unify Hub. So Unify Hub engine will connect to that cloud storage and then make that cloud storage available. What we can do with that is we can then create on-premise shares with that cloud storage. And we can accelerate that because the solution comes with either a caching on the appliance. You can choose a level of caching you'd like, or you can use your existing storage if you have a GB Lab server already and use that to cache. So the main thing about this is a little bit like our incredibly clever hyperspace technology. So what we're doing is we're watching the files that are being used, and as they come down from the cloud and being used on site, we then take a copy of them in the caching. Meaning that if you go and access those files again, you're not paying for them to come down again. You're actually pulling them directly from the local storage pool at around 500 megaseconds. So you've got massive acceleration on that cloud data. We then have our next part, which is our endpoints or our remote workspaces. So what we can do is we can take on-premise storage, either inside the box or other SMB servers. Unify Hub will then take that and then send that out as an S3 compatible export, an S3 compatible share. Meaning, potentially, if you had maybe some stuff in the cloud that needs an S3 storage pool to be able to drag its data from, you could take your on-premise storage and export that as S3 through a secure connection to that cloud environment. You don't need to pay for more cloud storage. You could theoretically have other S3s connecting to that, which is really useful. But that on-premise storage can also be seen on-premise. So it may be a workspace locally, a share locally, that's seen in the cloud, but also on-premise. So, and this is why Unify Hub is sometimes quite difficult to explain. There are so many tools within what it can do. There's always something that floats somebody's boat, and they go, actually, that's perfect for our business. That'll really help us. The other bits, I don't really need those, but they're good to have.
Duncan, there's a question here.
Yes.
Is it only GB Lab storage that can cache?
No. So with the Unify Hub, if you want to take on-premise storage and share it out as an S3 compatible remote workspace, we can connect to SMB shares as well. So it's a great point, Mark, and it's something that I want to discuss about later as well, because that's vitally important. You know, for the 90% of the population that don't already have GB Labs, we can work with them as well. So yeah, it really is about making that flexible, because if you are a business and you've got a pool of storage already, if you want to do remote working, why would you want to go and buy more storage? You have plenty of it, so we'll work with that too. And that's something we've always maintained, is trying to be as flexible as possible with other people's environments. You know, our Echoes, for example, our nearline products will nearline anything, and we can take copies, we can snapshot anything into our nearlines. We've always wanted to work with other environments. And our partners, of course, they have a suite of tools that they want to offer to their clients. And sometimes a particular storage system might be needed for a particular production environment, because that's what they work with. But we can also work with that too. So Unify Hub is not a storage product, it's a workflow product, and that's really quite key here. So the next part we have is home users, the remote working. So that's those endpoints, those remote workspaces, we can make them available for home working. And that then works with our remote working app, which then provides remote working app, which then provides the home worker the ability to work natively with the files they're presented with. And combined with that, we have virtual workspaces. So virtual workspaces, if you're familiar with our products, we have folders on storage which are shared out. And we want to make sure those get, I just realized, well, I'm talking quite a while here. So remote workspaces, virtual workspaces allow you to take various components of that software and then bring that into a new share that just takes the files that you've chosen, and you can then make that available on premise, or you can make it available to a home user. And we can do that with on-premise storage or with cloud storage. So the other part about Unify Hub is the cloud providers. So this is our current range of cloud providers that we're working with. So Wasabi, Dropbox, Dropbox Business, Backblaze, Amazon, and Google Drive. The SSD there is denoting that all of those can be accelerated by using Unify Hub. So we can connect to those cloud providers and we can bring that through. And a new part of what we're doing is we're doing Live Sync. So Live Sync is the latest addition to the Unify Hub, and this is working particularly with Dropbox Business. So they've introduced a new thing called Teams, Team Spaces, which is slightly different to their old folders. So with Live Sync, well, we can take a portion of our storage and we can actually sync it live with these spaces on the Dropbox cloud, which means if your business has chosen to use Dropbox as your single point of truth for that data, our storage can then work with that. And we're one of the first to do this. We've been working with the Dropbox dev team and they're very excited what we've achieved, because you can also have that on-premise experience with that data too. So if you're people working at home with that Dropbox data, we can live sync it and you can then access that locally and have that acceleration in the studio you get with the performance that we have. So 4K media, accelerated production and that kind of thing. So remote working, on-premise experience, and lots of data, fast access to that data. So that's kind of it from the presentation side. So I really wanted to have a chat with you, Mark, and then answer any questions that have come in. I've got access to the software here, so I can show you what the software looks like.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. I mean, the first thing is, there is a, I was going to say, if you have any questions, please fire them out. We have a question, any plans to integrate OneDrive?
Yeah, so 365, Azure, all that kind of stuff. Yes, we've got a long list of providers. The ones that we've chosen to start with are the ones that were really probably coming up most in conversation. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Okay. Oh, there's nothing, there's no other questions on there. Oh, yes, there's another one, right. Do you have a MAM to wrap around this?
Currently, no. I mean, we have always maintained that we're kind of MAM agnostic. What we're doing with the users is that the users, when they launch the app, can actually connect to the storage and see these workspaces. So when we create a remote workspace, we are taking existing folders on the storage and then presenting that to the home user. The home user can then see that in the app and they can mount those buckets because it's S3 compatible. So it has that same kind of naming structure. Once they have that on the user side, they can then mount that connection and they can then cache that data. So you can force that data to come down to you and then you can work natively. So it's like working with a local drive. It's like working in the office with that data. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Chris, we can help with MAMs as well. We've got a couple of different vendors that we work with as Boxer. There's thing is with MAMs and PAMs and thank you MAMs, all of these systems is they're so broad, and finding the right thing that fits in with the customer is really important. So what we found in that situation is we have some very light level systems, and one thing that we've found recently is a lot of people just can't find the stuff that they've got
you know, wherever it is in the cloud. They just want to view it. They just want to find some way of seeing it before they move forward. I think this is the biggest problem with a lot of people, is when they left the when they left the office, it just all, you know, people found the minimum they needed to get on and do things. And from that, we found that's been one of the major issues. So we've got a few things to help with that tie in really well to what GB Labs are doing. Okay, another question. The appliance line can be configured with varying volumes of onboard storage. What's the advantage of this over using existing third-party storage? I guess it would be caching, but what do you think?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, sure. The appliance line can be configured with varying volume of onboard storage. So your products have got various different options for internal storage. What's the advantage of using this? So is there an advantage of using GB Labs storage over other vendors' storage under your management?
Okay, so Unify Hub, the onboard storage with the appliance is there for the cloud caching environment. Okay, so it's probably best to show the software a little bit, actually, because then it'll make a little bit more sense. Let's have a look. Let's share that again quickly. So this is logged into the software. So you can see here that we've got a number of different endpoints. So when we're adding a location, what we're doing is we're bringing that cloud in. So these are the locations that we can have as we add them in. So for example, if we selected an AWS or a Dropbox or an SMB share, with the appliance, this is where we're using the caching. So when we bring this location in to our storage, the caching is utilized to be able to help accelerate that data on premise. If you're just taking the Unify Hub to then create a remote workspace, the remote workspaces are there to take a share and they send them out. Okay, so actually that's using the power of your existing storage. So if you have, for example, 100 terabyte storage system, Unify Hub can then take one of those shares and we can then produce that for remote working and remote users at home or export it out as S3. So we're really utilizing the power that you have. You don't have to invest in GB Labs storage system to be able to have this. That's why we have the appliance. But if you're connecting a cloud, of course, when you're bringing that down, that data is then cached on the local storage. So that's what that is used for, which is why we've started off at 3.8 terabytes all the way up to 60. You might decide actually that you go, well, do you know what? I've got a Backblaze account. I've got 10 terabytes of data in there. So I'm going to go and buy the appliance with 15 terabytes of storage, and I'm going to have the whole thing cached on storage. So when I'm accessing those cloud files, I'm actually pulling them from the local machine, getting all that performance on the network. But they're still available in the cloud, and it goes both ways. So it syncs up both ways. And then these shares that you can see here, these endpoints, these are the buckets available to the users. And then in the app, the Unify Connect app, we have those available to us here. And we can then mount those buckets and connect into them. So as I go to my machine, I go down to my machine here. I'll be able to see those as they connect in, as they launch up. So what it does is it makes it really efficient to be able to work remotely. So they link together quite nicely.
Well, there's another question here on, is there a big difference between the cloud storage costs? And I think that this is something that's a general point that is worth talking about. What we're seeing at the minute is a real variation between on-prem, hybrid and cloud. And I can help answer part of this from what we're seeing. Is it really depends. It's a nice broad answer. We're finding that some people are still transitioning to cloud. We have some people who are coming back from the cloud. One of the things that's really been happening lately is the total cost of ownership, if you like. I think companies that started to look at all their cloud costs because they've been running for a few years. They're getting an idea now how much storage really costs. So for some people, the size is a good split. For others, it's not. We have a fair number of people who are coming back to on-prem storage, and certainly for things like edit suites and those kind of uses, on-prem storage is still the quickest way of doing anything. You don't want everything that you've got in the cloud. And if you look at GB Labs, they've got various tiers of storage to allow you to have a high performance tier and an archive tier, for example, so that you can, you can optimize the storage that you do have. But I think what we found certainly recently with remote, and see what you think, Duncan, is I think for a lot of people it was I don't have a choice really. I need some element of cloud in there to make it work remotely. So I think some of the services now, Wasabi recent integration, certainly the costs there are much lower than a lot of the other providers.
Yeah, they are, and Wasabi, their costs are much lower. Backblaze have got a fairly good, a really nice pricing policy. I think why those guys are being successful is because to most people trying to understand AWS's charges are horrific. And even if you just look at a file, even if you just browse a filing structure, you're being charged, right? So every time a file is coming down, you're being charged. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, that's fine. If that's what you want to use, then that's no problem. What's happening is that when you're browsing that cloud, you're looking at it through the local network, but actually we're going out to the cloud. So once you browse those files and you brought them down, we're actually keeping them locally. So if you look at those files again, or you play those files back, or you work with those files again on premise, where some of your people will be, you're not going to get charged for those files to come back down again.
Okay.
That's absolutely key.
I think egress, I don't know if people have been following recently, to just say it happens to everybody. NASA did a big project. They threw a lot of stuff up into Amazon, quite a lot of stuff up into Amazon, as it turns out, and hadn't worked out the egress costs. So they threw it all up there, and it was hundreds and hundreds of terabytes. They then needed to get it all back. And I think it was petabytes. It was petabytes. Anyway, they pulled it back, and the egress costs were tens of millions. And of course, being a public American company, they had to disclose all of this. It's the way they work. So it really was a massive, massive hit. So, it is something that you do have to be wary of, in everything you do. Another question, once the shares and connections to cloud have been set up by admin, could you share a screen of what the user or the editor would see?
So basically, you would be connecting to it locally, essentially. So that if you let's have a look. Let's share my screen. Where's Zoom gone? Just love it when it's live. Oh, there it is. Right, share screen. So those ones that we set up before, if you're used to our software, we have workspaces, but what we have now is we have different types of workspaces. A local workspace for us is a local on-premise storage being shared to on-premise people. Basically, that's where it works. I can, of course, connect to it from home via VPN because I can connect to it that way. That's completely normal. The cloud workspace is where we're generating a local share from that cloud environment. So here, for example, this Dropbox, if I click on this path, and I copy this and I go to my Finder. Connecting as guest. I'm working from home. And I will then see, as it refreshes, the contents of my Dropbox directory. So what we're actually sharing here is we are sharing the entire contents of the Dropbox cloud out via SMB. Now, if you're on location, this would run, of course, at local speed. So here I'm seeing this is the contents of my Dropbox via SMB through the Unify Hub software, and I'm working to this from home. If I was in the office, I'd then see that. So to the user, it'd be exactly the same as you work with every other workspace that we have.
Brilliant, cool, thank you. I am conscious of the time, but people have been asking questions, which is always nice. I've got a final question here.
Yeah.
Is it possible to peer with cloud service providers to optimize bandwidth for home users with basic broadband connections?
Yeah, so the way that we work with the home user is that the home user app is a little bit like the kind of the locations inside the software. So as you connect to it, we will then mount that share and you will see all the files in there. So as you start to play a file, it will start to download it. But one thing that we can do is we can actually override that and we can cache the bucket. So what we can do is we can force that data to come down. So particularly if you're in production, you can actually force that data to come down to you, and then you can work from it on your local performance, on your local storage, on your local drive. So you're working with it at native speed, essentially. And that's really important because a lot of people working from home have got a quite good download, but not a very good upload. And this is particularly prevalent in the US. So as you work with it, you can copy files into that share, you can drop files into it, and then it'll copy it into the caching area. You work on them, and in the background, we're pushing them back to the office. So the home user gets a really good experience. And we can also choose where that data goes. So you could provide an editor with a 2 terabyte external drive, connect that in, connect to the thing and say, right, I want that data to go to that drive, and that's what I'm going to be using for my caching. So that gives me my local performance. And it's quite seamless for the user, very seamless for the user.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you. Well, I think that is us good for time now. So we really appreciate you all being here. As I often say, we realize you have other webinars to attend and you chose ours. So thank you for that. And thank you for Duncan for joining us to talk. We're here to talk to you about any of these type of workflow issues. Right now, we are, I say, very busy taking calls from people about how they change. I've described, the COVID thing as our Apollo 13 moment. I think when it first kicked off, everyone just had to make do with what they had. There was no other option. We hadn't prepared for this. What do we do? And that worked for a while. But where we are now is in that area where we're trying to make that more solid. We're trying to use off-the-shelf products rather than stuff that we just cobble together. We're trying to find something that's supportable. And we're trying to find something that works for the new ways people want to work. I think Duncan, mentioned it earlier on. We're in a time where a lot of people don't want to go back to what we were doing before. We've got used to actually, seeing our families and not getting on a train. And it turns out I quite like my family. Well, what a surprise. They're nice people. But, I don't see them wholesale everybody going back to 5 days in an office in Soho. I think we are seeing people who are actually more productive working at home. But the technology's got to support us. We've got to take out some of those workflow niggles and some of those frustrations. And GB Labs have gone a long way to doing that. So thank you again. Thank you all for coming and joining us for Boxer Shorts. And we'll be in touch soon with the next edition. So thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. And just to add very quickly, if you guys want a personal demo of the software and the clients, then please go speak to the guys at Boxer, and we'll arrange that for you. It's much better when we can have a bit more time talking about the software and really show it in an actual depth. But thank you, Mark. Really appreciate the time. And,
excellent.
It's a strange job where we live in, and looking forward to it. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Good to see you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.